begin. People at home, if you don't have your notebook and something to write with, go grab it now. Because you're going to start with a little bit of notes review, and then we'll get some new notes today. All right. So first of all, if you want, you can look back at your notes from yesterday because I'm going to ask you some questions about what you took notes on. So first of all, somebody tell me, and you can just shout it out, what is the name for the kind of clay that we are using? Stone. We're so close. Stoneware. Yes, thank you. Stoneware. It's a type of clay. It becomes permanent at what temperature? Cone 6, right. And can someone tell me what that's equal to in degrees Fahrenheit? 2,100. Very, very good. We talked about wedging, why we wedge yesterday. The first thing we do when we wedge is we take our clay and we slam it down a couple of times on our wedging cloth. What does that do for our clay? It gets rid of the air bubbles and what did you say? It also dries it out. Yep, anytime it touches that canvas, it's drying it out, right? And it also compresses the clay. So those little clay platelets are all nice and flat in alignment. And then after we slam the clay down, like maybe 2 or 3 times, then we wedge the clay by pushing it away and then pulling it back, kind of like kneading bread dough. It's that same motion. What does that do for the clay? It gets rid of some of the moisture, and what else does it do to it? As you're pushing away and curling back and pushing away and curling back.
It softens any hard stuff.
Yep, it mixes it, right. It breaks down any hard chunks and mixes it up so it becomes more consistent. Very good. We talked about plasticity. Remember I had my little visual aid here of my little clay platelets, and we talked about plasticity. Plasticity is clay's ability to stretch and what? It stretches and hold shape. Right, exactly. Unlike most things where you stretch them, if you let go, it'll snap back to its original shape. Clay does not do that because the particles are what? There's water in between these little platelets, and the platelets are what shape? Flat, right. It's because the platelets are flat that when water gets in between them, they stick and stretch but still stay together. So clay has plasticity because the particles are flat. Dirt particles are round, so you can't stretch dirt and have it stay in the same position, but you can with clay because the particles are flat. What is the name for that machine that heats or pots up to a temperature that makes the platelets melt together? Kiln, right, exactly. A kiln can be a lot of different things. For us, it happens to be an electric oven, essentially, that can go to thousands and thousands of degrees. Your oven at home would not do anything for the clay other than warm it up. So it needs an extreme heat to create that chemical change and melt the platelets together. What is the first firing that your pots go through? What is the name of that firing? Bisque firing, right. So in that bisque firing, we take your totally dry pots. We have to make sure there's no water left in them. And we put them in the kiln, and they heat up to around 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. It creates that chemical change. The platelets melt together. And then when it comes out of the kiln, it is ready to glaze. And so then what is the second firing called? Glaze firing, right. I totally gave it away. So the second firing is the glaze firing. The glaze that we have painted on our bisqueware melts. The pots come out all shiny and food safe and colorful, and they are done at that point, ready for you to take home with them and to use them. In which of those 2 firings, the bisque firing or the glaze firing, which one could something blow up? Bisque, right, the first firing. Nothing ever blows up in the second firing. If it was going to happen, it would have happened in the first firing. And what are the 2 things that could make your project blow up in the kiln? Moisture and air. And which one is worse? Water, absolutely. If water is trapped in between those clay platelets, it'll start to boil in the firing process, and it will shatter your project from the inside out. So that's why we always try and make sure that nothing we make is thicker than about an inch to a half inch, all right? If we get thicker than that, it's going to be really hard to tell if there's moisture inside that thickness. So we try to make never anything thicker than about an inch. That way we can pretty much gauge if the outside feels dry, it's probably dry all the way through. And also air, if air is trapped, that air will expand in the firing, and the thing that's trapping it will just pop off real cleanly. So that's a better kind of explosion because we can usually just glue or glaze that piece back on. And so what was I going to say about that? I don't know. So that's the better kind of explosion if there is such a thing. Good, so that's a recap of the notes from yesterday. We're gonna jump into our new notes now. I should say again, I think I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again. There is a quiz on all these notes that we'll be taking. You will get to use your notebook on the quiz, but I did want to give you a heads up. So you want to make sure that these notes are all in your notebook, easy to find, in order, so it's easy for you on the quiz. All right, so here's what today looks like. We've got some new vocab notes, introduction to your animal project. You're going to start your animal project today. You're going to sketch some ideas for your animal. I'm going to demonstrate how to make the pinch pots that will become your animal. You'll have some work time, and you'll submit a progress picture of however far you get for today. And that's for you folks at home too. All right, so only 3 words today. So on the next clean page in your notebook, please write these 3 terms up on the top of that next clean page. These are your terms for today: form, vessel, and pinch pot. All right, keep writing if you didn't get all this down yet, but I'm gonna start chatting with you so that we can move on. First new term is form. A form is a 3-dimensional shape. Everything you make in ceramics will be a form. Everything is 3-dimensional. So and a way to kind of maybe explain this would be when you're talking about shapes, a circle would be a shape, a sphere would be a form. So what we would make in here wouldn't be a circle, it would be a sphere. And in fact, what you're gonna be starting your animal with is you're going to make 2 spheres, one for the head and one for the body. So everything we do is going to be 3D because ceramics is a 3-dimensional art form. It's meant to be seen and used from all views. So I'm going to use that word a lot. I just wanted you to know what it meant. A form is a 3D shape. Also, everything we make in here is going to be a vessel. A vessel is an object which has volume. I should have said that it's also hollow inside. A vessel is hollow. So it can contain something. Like this cup right here is a vessel. I could put water in it. I could put anything in this, and it would hold that item that I put inside there. So it's a vessel. It's meant to hold something. And when it doesn't have anything in it, it's still holding air. So it's still a vessel. It can contain something. Here's an example of the animal project, similar to what you might make for this project. And it has a little lid and it's hollow inside, so it's a vessel. I could put dirt and a plant inside here, so it would be a planter. I could put my jewelry in here. I could put my change, my pocket change in there. It's a vessel. It can hold something, and even when there's nothing in it, it still holds air, so it's still a vessel. This little guy right here, he is not hollow. He cannot hold or contain anything. This is a sculpture. It's not a vessel. It can't contain anything. It's purely an interesting work of art, not a vessel, not functional. So your animal will be a vessel. And then finally, pinch pot. Pinch pot is a vessel constructed entirely by pinching clay to stretch platelets almost to their breaking point. We don't want to pinch the clay so far and so thin that it breaks. We're going to kind of learn today how far you can push the clay till it gets to the point right before it breaks. Because we want to pinch these to be nice and thin so our animals are nice and big and nice and lightweight. We don't want things that are heavy and clunky if we can help it. So you're going to be learning how to make pinch pots today and creating a vessel constructed by pinching, by just using the 10 tools that are at the ends of your arms. Those are the only tools you're going to be using today. So those are your 3 new terms. They will be part of the quiz happening next week. All right, so let's talk about your animal project. So you can get an idea and start brainstorming what you might want to do for this project. You can do pretty much any animal that you want for this project. There are some exceptions. I'll talk about those on the next slide, just because they would be really hard to do. But the animal is going to be made up of pinch pots, like you see in the small picture there. So I'll talk about how to make pinch pots and how those are going to come together in the next few days. So what I would strongly recommend for this project, just to make your animal really strong and really safe, is I would encourage you to make your animal in a sleeping position, just because then you don't have to worry about thin, breakable little legs or anything like toppling and falling over because it'd be top heavy. So I would encourage you to think of an animal, and then I'm going to allow you to be able to go online eventually when we are doing our sketching and brainstorming to look for images of the animals sleeping. So if you want to do a fox, I would look online for images of sleeping foxes, just because it'll be so much more stable, but also, like, I hate to say this word, but it will also be easier to make your animal in a sleeping position. Because think about it. Think about how a fox would have really long, skinny legs. If you had to sculpt those really long, skinny legs, that would really be a challenge. But if you make that fox sleeping with its big, bushy tail wrapped around its body, you don't even need to make legs because we're not going to see them. So that's the thing to think about. Same with the turtle. The turtle, its little sea turtle flippers are kind of snuggled forward. Its head is resting on the flippers. The flippers are not sticking out and able to be broken. You know, they're nice and strong up in front. So that's something to consider, to make your animal in a sleeping position. It's what I would encourage. Here are a few more examples of animals that are really nice and compact and are in that sleeping position. The dragon, this can be a fantasy creature. It doesn't have to be a real creature. So it can be a creature that you've made up. It could be something from mythology, or it can be a real creature. That's up to you. If you wish, you can make your animal into a planter. So it will have a lid, like this chameleon here has a lid, but it's up to you if you want to keep the lid. If you would rather just keep it open and put a plant inside there, that's totally fine. You could do that. And so just putting that out there as an option. So as you are trying to brainstorm what kind of animal you might want to make for this project, the first question I want you to ask yourself is what would be meaningful to you? Because you're going to put more time and energy into something that you really feel connected to. So I want you to think along those lines. Or maybe you're going to give this to someone. So what is an animal that person would really treasure and would really feel connected to? So think about that. If you have a favorite animal or someone that you would give this to as a favorite animal. Next thing I want you to consider, the animal should be compact because it's going to be made up of 2 spheres. You're going to be able to add other features to it, certainly, but the main part of the body is going to come from a sphere and the head is going to come from a sphere, 2 spheres put together. So some animals just aren't going to work in that capacity. Like a snake isn't really going to work because a snake has a really long, thin, tube-shaped body, and that isn't going to work for what we're doing here. It's not going to work for 2 spheres. If you wanted to do, what's another example? A fish, I guess, maybe. A fish has more of a tube-shaped body. And so the ideal animal would be an animal that has kind of maybe a larger kind of body and then a smaller head. But, you know, there are variations, and you can think your way around the problem. If you really, really, really want to do a fish, we can figure it out. Also, short-necked animals will work better. Like a giraffe would be kind of hard to do for this, the way that I set up this assignment. But again, if you feel really, really strongly about a giraffe, we can think our way around that problem too, right? But These are just my suggestions as you're brainstorming ideas. So when I did my sketches, I love sloths, as you might be able to tell, like the seat that you're sitting on right now has a sloth on it. I put sloths on my pottery all the time, so I love sloths. So sloth was one of my ideas. Sloth all snuggled up, sleeping. A bird was another idea. I thought maybe putting the wings up, and then I thought, no, that would look weird, so I crossed it out, and I put the wings against the body. And then a cat was my other idea that I sketched out quick. And all my sketches were based on kind of an egg shape for the body, and then a smaller egg shape for the head. So that kind of helped me map out how I would use the spheres that I'm going to make. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to do some sketching yourselves today. You can look on your phones, you can look on your Chromebook if you want to help get ideas, but 5 minutes, and then in your notebook, sketch 3 different animals, 3 different ideas you could do for this project. These sketches will be part of what you photograph today. So I will be seeing these sketches, and they will be part of your points for today. While these guys are sketching, people are at home, you should also be sketching, okay? 5 minutes, sketch 3 different ideas for this project.
Praise the bathroom.
Yeah, let me hang on, let me write your pass. For my, oh, is it
Thomas?
Thomas, right? Time is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. If you have an idea and you're not really sure if it's a good idea, I would be more than happy to give you my input. I see. Okay. Can I maybe send you at the end of the hour when we're having time? Sure. Okay. All right. Is it like you can be on with me? Is it like about this class? Are you gonna try and switch out? Okay, and that's fine. That's fine. So then you should go now. I just didn't want you to miss anything if it was going to be an issue for you to miss. Okay. So 2 items. They may let you drop. They may not, because what I know right now is that a lot of the elective classes are really full right now. So you can ask. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Go ahead. One thing I want to point out, and there's always somebody that asks about it, and I want to just like be upfront about it right away. So there's always someone that wants to know if they can do their animal standing up or sitting up, kind of like this penguin right here. You certainly can. You can make this project the same way and cut the lid off on the top. But doing this just makes it less functional because it's much harder to use this vertical space. Whereas if it's laying down, you have a much bigger space to utilize for storage or for a plant. So that's why I encourage you to make your animal laying down. It just becomes a more functional object than if it's standing or sitting up. If you're having trouble looking for ideas online, something you could Google is, I'm going to go back to cats, sleeping cat sculpture. or abstract cat sculpture, because abstract means simplified. So you can look at it in a way where it breaks it down into more basic shapes, which might seem more accessible if you're a little bit nervous about making something that looks super realistic. I'm not expecting super realistic. Also, I'm not expecting perfect sketches either. This isn't drawing class. If your sketches aren't like museum worthy, it's totally okay. They're for you mostly. All right, I'm going to give you about 1 more minute to keep sketching. If you don't finish in that time, you can certainly finish later. But then I'm going to move on and do the demo for what you're going to be doing today, and then I'm going to let you at it so you can start working with clay. Absolutely. I have letter stamps too, if you want to actually stamp her name on it as well, or on the bottom or something. Yeah, that would be really special. Yeah. You could make the values here and tip here, and then make those base words, and then you can top base, and then attach the bottom to that base, then build the rest of the arm so that they yeah, you want it totally would. Yeah, to do the body. That way it'll be really smart. And then the legs will be tucked and very strong. And you can make the head up, absolutely. Okay. I'm going to ask you to pause your sketching. You can come back to it, definitely. But I'm going to show you the demo now. And these are the steps that I'm going to go through. I'm not going to talk you through the steps right now because you're going to see them in the demo. I'm going to leave these up on the screen, and people who are at home, this will be on the video that I'm going to post in a little bit. So if you need a reminder of what to do first, second, third when you're working, you'll be able to go back to this slide as well. So I am going to demo over on table 9, which is that table over there where nobody's sitting. So people who are seated really far away, I'm going to ask that you come on over around table 9 so that you can see what I'm doing. And maybe Caitlin, could you flick on the lights before you come over, please? Thank you. All right, so we'll start with that up there. Okay, so for your pinch pots today, because we're only making pinch pots today, we're making the raw materials of your animal. So the amount of clay that you're going to grab today is about a softball of clay. So people at home, a softball of clay for you too. So today, you're not going to take the clay from the mixer because the clay in the mixer is still really wet. So you're going to get it from this bag, or there's 2 bags of clay over there. So you can get clay from any of those spots. I'm going to grab approximately a softball of clay. It's going to be a lot more firm today, so it won't need as much wedging. Always make sure you seal up the bag when you're done grabbing your clay so it doesn't dry out. Then it's in a lot of chunks because I just pulled it out in like 3 chunks. So definitely have to compress it today, like smack it 2, 3, 4, 5 times to pop the air bubbles and bring all those pieces together. And then I'm going to wedge it. So I'm going to push it away, curl it back, push it away, curl it back. And because the clay is already firm today, I actually don't want to over wedge it or it might dry it out too much. So I would say ram's head wedge maybe like 5, 6, 7 times should be all you really need today to mix it up. People at home, your clay is going to be in whatever consistency your clay is. It'll always be the same. Today, or in the classroom, sometimes the clay is wet, sometimes the clay is dry, depending on what the mixer has given us. All right, so I have my softball. Now I'm going to divide this into, what does it say? 2 tennis balls and 2 golf balls. And all of this is approximate. Basically, you just need 2 pieces that are going to be bigger and then 2 pieces that are going to be smaller. So we'll call these my tennis ball size pieces, and we'll call these my golf ball size pieces, all right? So then with each one of these, you're going to pack it like it's a snowball so it becomes nice and round. So I'm just cupping my hands and smacking the clay back and forth to round it out. It's going to make a better pinch pot if you start with a sphere. So that's why I'm doing this. Okay, and then for each one, you're going to make a pinch pot out of each of these. So in the end, you're going to have 2 small pinch pots and 2 big pinch pots. So to make a pinch pot, you take your thumb and you're going to push it into the clay almost until you've poked through, right? I'm trying to hold this low enough so the screen can see, but you guys can still see. So I've almost pushed it all the way through. Then between my thumb that's on the inside and these 2 fingers on the outside, I'm going to pinch with the clay wall in between my fingers. Then my other hand is going to help me turn, and I pinch, and I turn, and I pinch. And I'm going to keep turning and pinching. And I'm going to kind of work my fingers up toward the lip of the pot. And what I'm really doing is I'm pushing the clay platelets little by little. I'm nudging them to stretch further and further apart from each other so that the clay stretches and becomes bigger, okay? So this is the start of my pinch pot, but it's a really thick, heavy pinch pot. And I want to push the clay right to its, almost its breaking point, right? So I got to make it thinner. So now I'm going to go in with both thumbs and both index fingers and middle fingers on the outside. And I'm going to pinch and stretch it even more. So I'm kind of feeling for the thick spots and pinching those areas more. And then as my fingers kind of circulate the pot in areas that already feel pretty thin, I'm not pushing at all in those spots. So I'm trying to just kind of spot pinch really in the areas that really need it. So I'm trying to push it till those walls are maybe like 1/4 of an inch thin. That would be a really good thickness to try and go for today. Now I'm just feeling for those areas that are still a little bit thick. So that's pretty good. That's pretty consistent from bottom to top. And notice how I was holding it the whole time. You want to do that because if you're working with it on the table and pinching with it on the table, it's going to have a flat bottom. And so then when you put your 2 pinch pots together, it's not going to be a sphere. It's going to be more of a barrel shape. So we want it to be more round. So you're going to do your pinching in the air, not on the table. So there's pinch pot number 1. That was from the golf ball size. Now I'm going to make my second pinch pot from the small hunk of clay. So first just with one hand, then I go in with both hands. And feel for the thick spots, and then I go back to one hand, just really fine tuning it, stretching that clay in its thickest spots to even it out. Okay, so there's pinch pot number 2, and these 2, not today, because they're still really soft and floppy today, but tomorrow they're gonna come together, they're gonna be put together to become the head of your animal. Then I'm gonna do the same thing with the big pinch pots, so a little bit more work with these because there's more clay there. I'm going to start by sticking my thumb in, pinching between my thumb and my outer finger. By working your way, kind of spiraling really up toward the rim, that's what's stretching that clay upward. So I'm working my fingers toward the rim. Now I'm going in with both thumbs, both hands, feeling for those thick spots. And I'm doing this really quick just so I can finish quickly. You guys can take a little bit more time to do this better than I am or take a little bit more care. I'm just trying to get all 4 done so I can show you what to do at the end. So it's kind of thick at the bottom there, and it's kind of hard for me to reach my thumbs down there at the bottom because my thumbs aren't long enough. So I'm just going to kind of blend and stretch the clay by blending my thumb because it's hard to reach my fingers all the way down to the bottom. So there's the big one compared to the small one. So there is a difference there. And then I'll do one more big one. And this is as far as we're going to go for today. We're just going to make the 4 pinch pots. So people who are at home, you have a plastic tray in the bag that I've given you. People who are here, you have wood trays that I've put out on your tables. I apologize if it's dirty. The kids who brought them back last trimester, some of them did not clean their trays, so you might have to clean your tray first. That's what we're going to store your work on. So that's going to keep your work safe as we transport it, as we slide it into our locker, as we wrap it up. The tray is going to be your nice stable base that you're building this project on. All right, so there's pinch pot number 4. This will end up being put together with this to make the body of my animal, and you'll be able to reshape it. Once this is together, it doesn't have to stay in this egg shape. You can stretch it and move it and turn it and do all sorts of things to it. This is just the starting point. So then for your assignment today, what I want you to do is put all 4 pinch pots on your tray and then put your notebook next to it and take a photo. You guys won't be able to see this on the screen in person, but I don't need to show you that, never mind. So I had a picture of the 4 pinch pots with the notes or the sketches right next to it. I don't have to show you that, you can envision that. So that's your assignment for today. One picture that has the 4 pinch pots and then the sketches next to it. So I can see that you did both. Then to wrap this up for today, because we can't just leave these out in the open like we did with our tiles. We don't want these to dry out. And so what you have to do after you've snapped your photo, put them upside down like this, because otherwise see how much they kind of roll around. They could roll off your tray. So we're just going to put them upside down like this. And then underneath where you, or near where you sit, there are bag holders. So at the end of this table, this table, this table, this table, and this table are bag holders. So just grab a bag, slide your tray and everything into that bag, and then just tuck the opening of the bag underneath it to seal it up so no air can get in. And then that's going to go in your locker. People who are at home, you're going to have to find your own bag. I did not pack bags for you, but just any old grocery bag that's plastic will do. And that's as far as we're going to go for today. We'll do the next step of putting them together tomorrow. People who are here, if you have any questions for me, otherwise I'm going to go talk to the people who are online. Yeah.
Think like an axolotl.
Ooh,
Its
yeah.
body is like,
Tubed, like,
bigger.
yeah, it totally can be done. In
Okay.
fact, there was a kid that did it last trimester. So you'll still start the same way, but then we'll stretch it and
Okay.
curve it to be more in that shape.
It'll work.
Yep, it'll work 100%. Yep. Any other questions before you guys start working? Okay, all right, get to it. I'll be back in a few minutes after I've chatted with the VLA kids. And I'm gonna grab this. Yes, I do. Let me think where I put them. Yeah, right here next to that spray bottle. Yep. And you can just keep a pair of those gloves in your locker so you have them every day. Hi, people at home. Hello. Whew. All right. Let's see. I'm going to stop recording.